Hey guys, so we actually have a YCS happening this weekend, which is the first YCS since Cyberstorm Access has become legal, and so I thought it might be a little helpful to go through what some of the high-rated players on Dueling Book are playing, just so we have a little bit better sense of what the meta is looking like. And so what I typically do with this kind of analysis is that I go through what the high-rated players are playing by just watching their duels on Dueling Book, or sometimes going through DB Grinder or the Dueling Archive replays, as well as sometimes just messaging them personally, asking what they're playing. So I obviously cannot get everyone's decks, but I try to get as many as possible and then map them out and show it to you guys. And so before we continue, big thanks to my sponsors as always, links and discount codes in the description below, and a particular big thanks to Dragon Shield for sending me some supplies as usual with their amazing new sleeves. They do have a new art sleeve coming out, and so definitely stay tuned for that, and you can always support them by buying Dragon Shield sleeves at your local store or just using my affiliate link as well. So in terms of this month, usually I only actually look at like top 50 or maybe sometimes top 100 ranked players, but this time, because we're so far into the format in terms of the way Dueling Book works, is that, you know, the ratings only reset if there's a new ban list, and because we don't have one yet, even players in top 200, they're actually all over 1100 rating at the time of recording this video, which is still quite high. So this time I decided to just include all 200 players, and so essentially I was able to track down what 93 of them were playing, so a little under half. And so basically, it's a really important caveat, keep that in mind, because the pie chart might look different if we actually have all the decks. So this is what it looked like among the little under half that were available, and you do see Kashira being the #1 played. Again, this might look different if we have all of the information from 200 players, but at the same time, I think it might actually be a safe bet that Kashira would still be the most played, because it is just, I think most people at this point agree that it is the best deck, and it's showing a lot of regional tops so far to prove that. We do have a lot of super heavy samurai though, definitely can't sleep on them. They're a new deck as well, so there's some added hype to that. What I thought was interesting though was the increased play, or a lot of play, in Dragon Link, technically Bestial Dragon, however you want to call them. I'm not really sure what it is that is certainly increasing their interest, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure if Apple Dragon, does that really change the deck that much? I'm not too sure. Certainly let me know in the comments if that is certainly a game breaker. In terms of regional tops, it's decent. It's gotten a few among the ones that are collected so far by, for example, Team Step Pass. You can certainly check out his channel for that. And so, but at the same time, the other decks in sort of the same tier, let's say like Labyrinth or Mathmech or Branded, they have a lot more regional tops than Dragon Link so far. But who knows, maybe that'll change with this upcoming YCS. We also have Pearly as well, certainly a really strong deck as well, another new deck along the likes of Super Heavy Samurai that came out in Cyberstorm Access, so I think it will definitely have some success at this upcoming YCS as well. We also have Labyrinth still hanging in there, still pretty strong, and also just kind of like the best back row deck out there and for quite some time as well. And then you also have Branded, which actually has a lot of regional tops so far in terms of post Cyberstorm Access, but at the same time, again, like I said, we are missing a lot of players, so maybe if I had information on all 200 players, the percentage of Branded would be a lot higher. But at the same time, I think it's safe to say that something like Kashira, Super Heavy, and Pearly are probably top 3 most played. We also had Subteller Knight, 2 players at least actually that I saw that were playing in high rated with this deck. Really cool. I still don't know too much about this deck, but from my last Rogue tier list video, I think some of the players had commented, you know, it might be kind of like has a turn skip thing as one of its gimmicks, so you know, I think it's really cool. And then in terms of the decks that are in other, I can cover that a little bit later in this video. So I also decided to just sort of focus on those who are ranked in the top 25, which at this point is around 1500 rating or higher, which is really insanely high. So I managed to get about 2/3 of those top 25 ranked players. And again, we see actually Kashira taking a bigger part of the pie, and also Pearly taking second, and Super Heavy Samurai with just 1, and all the other decks listed here at just 1. But again, it might be different if we had all top 25 players, but I think again it's very clear that Kashira is just the predominantly the best deck, and also the deck that the high rated players are going towards. We also still have Labyrinth as well as Mathmech up here. The Subteller Knight is also still in the top 25, which I think is really cool. Maybe I can try to reach out to do a deck profile or something if he's or she's interested. And then they add Ignister. I admit I actually just assumed the player was playing Ad Ignister. This was one of the only ones where I didn't actually personally see them playing this deck, but it's Vizion, who realistically has only ever played Ignister from the time that I've started this channel, and does really well with it. So probably a safe bet, but if he's not playing that deck for the first time, then certainly let me know. And then these are some of the other decks that I did not highlight, but were in the top 200 that were played, at least the ones that I collected. I tried to sort of list them in the way that or I think in terms of their power level, I think Sprite is still the best among these. It's kind of strange because it was tier 1 still from last format, but now I think it's sort of been overshadowed. I guess, perhaps you might as well just play Super Heavy Samurai because, it's another deck that can play a lot of hand traps, except it has some crazy one-card combos. Rika is still a really good deck as well. It actually has a few regional tops on top of that. Of course, if there's a lot of kind of like shifter focused decks coming back because of Super Heavy Samurai and Pearly, for example, then perhaps the play of Rika would not be too optimal. And I guess you could say the same for Marincess. It actually had a lot of competitive success last format. This format, post Cyberstorm Access so far, I have not seen any regional tops, at least in the spreadsheets that I've been seeing, but certainly still a good deck. And of course, I clearly have some passionate Marincess players that watch some of my videos, so I really appreciate your guys' input, and hopefully this deck stays relevant for more time to come. We also have Drytron, which again is, actually this is another player where I assumed he was playing it just because it's the only deck I've ever seen him play, and he's Esveneno. He's someone who I did a deck profile with before and has been high rated with Drytron for quite some time, so it's still a really strong deck as well, but I believe it also does not have any regional tops so far in this format, post Cyberstorm Access, but I'm sure it'll get there. We also have Evil Eye, which is certainly interesting anti-meta strategy. I believe this is not the same player that I interviewed a while back with this deck, but you know what? Clearly showing that it has potential. Virtual World, on the other hand, it is a player that I did interview before Cooperate. Really clearly loves this deck and can still do well. This is a deck that honestly really fell off in terms of even rogue play, which is kind of surprising because it used to hang on all the time in terms of among the rogue decks played that I do with the rogue tier list, but it really fell off in play. But clearly you can still do pretty well with this deck. Of course, there are certainly better combo options out there, but you know what, if you love the deck, you can make it work. And then Zodiac, that was really interesting. This sort of kind of came back randomly during tier format because it can play shifter and actually was like a going second build as well. I'm not quite sure if this player was also playing it that way, but certainly cool that even in this day and age, Dryden is still seeing some kind of competitive play and can, I guess, do well if you're a good pilot. But you know what, who knows, maybe Dryden will come back again someday too. And so I thought I'd also map out what the top 10 played decks are on Dueling Book among all players so that you can have a comparison to what the high rated players are playing. And so in terms of number 1 is still Kashira, definitely the most played deck on Dueling Book. Now, Wide Scope still cannot identify Super Heavy Samurai or Pearly. They are new decks. And so I personally put them here because if they could be identified, I suspect they would be number 2 and 3 most played deck online. And then now we also have Mathmech and Branded. Again, not too surprising. And again, Branded is actually done very well in terms of regional level as well as national level so far in Cyberstorm Access. So certainly don't sleep on them as well. And then the other 5, these decks you pretty much saw them play again in terms of among the high rated players as well. But some differences include Sword Soul, which again, if we had information on all 200 players, perhaps we would have seen some Sword Soul up there as well. It's a really solid deck. It's another deck that can technically make use of Apple Dragon, I believe. I'm not sure how common that actually is. Certainly let me know in the comments if you play Sword Soul. And so you know what, it's a really solid tier 2 strategy even now. And then the other difference I would say is Punk, which I think this is more so Gold Pride Punk, which again got some support from Cyberstorm Access and actually has at least one regional top so far in this new format. And I also recently did a deck profile with my friend with a Gold Pride Punk strategy, so certainly check that out if you're interested in this deck. Really wombo combo synchro heavy kind of playstyle. So anyways, that was it for the brief overview of the current meta and what the high rated players on Dueling Book are playing. Hopefully you found that interesting and helpful. Certainly let me know if you did, so that I can continue to do these on a more monthly basis. And anyways, thank you so much for watching. A big thanks to my Patreons as always for their support, and well, take care guys.